Welcome back to Luna and Friends. It's been a minute. I'm sorry. It's been a solid 2 years, just about 2 years. I've done a lot in 2 years. To be fair, I do have reasons. I did just graduate college. The last time I posted was September 5th of 2021. It's been a little over 2 years. I apologize. I did manage to, I'll put a timestamp here so you can skip my rambles of what's been up and how everything has been working. I also got to readjust to the mic and story reading, so I apologize if this one's a little out of my usual level of expertise. I use quotation fingers for that because I had no idea what I was doing back then, and I have no idea what I'm doing now. But I did manage to graduate college. I did a culinary arts program for pastry and baking. So it was a lot of fun. When I had started this, I was still in high school, and then I've managed to graduate high school and college. So life has been pretty busy. It's one of the reasons I couldn't do it. Another reason is that when I originally started this, it was fun, but then I started giving myself the expectation that I had to do it, and it stopped being so much fun. So I am going to try and keep in mind that this is something I do because I enjoy doing it, not because I'm expected to or have to do it. Okay, we'll put a timestamp here, hopefully, to let you know I'm done. Kind of per usual, because it's really one of the only stories I have permissions to read, still, from my understanding, and it's unfinished. There's so much more I have to read. I still have to get through chapter 4, or season 4, and all those chapters, and all of season 5, and all the little mini, the proposal stories and stuff like that. I have a lot to get through, and I figured it's not fair to leave you guys without knowing the rest. I assume that you guys have gone on Reddit yourselves for just how long I've been gone, but I figured for any new listeners that would like to hear the rest of the story, I could finish it, just for the fun of it. I will have the link to the story in the description, like I usually do, and yeah, so last time I left off, I had finished reading chapter 12 of season 4, and so we'll just kind of pretty much start off with chapter 13, yeah? Sounds good? If any of you remember what chapter 12 was. Alright. Season 4, chapter 13. 5 hours earlier. Todoroki really did try and calm himself down through class, but just the idea of Amari being hurt was driving him absolutely insane. All he wanted was for Deku to tell him that she was alright. That was it. He didn't need to know about the case or the state of the mission. All he cared about was knowing that she was safe, and it seemed the boy couldn't give him an answer. In fact, it was strange because it seemed like Deku was avoiding the question altogether. Was it really that hard to say that she was alright? No, there was something off about the whole thing. Something that his friend was hiding. That was what was making him go crazy. Knowing he wasn't going to get anywhere with Deku, as soon as the class bell rang, Todoroki tried a different approach. He wasn't the only one doing hero studies, after all. He walked up to Kirishima before tapping the boy on the shoulder, only for his face to drop in fear. Why did he seem nervous to see him? Oh, hey man, what's up? Noticing the change in tone, Todoroki looked towards the red-haired classmate before speaking plainly. Is everything alright? You seem nervous about something. Kiri just laughed at that, maybe a little too quickly, though before slapping his hand on the boy's back loudly. What? It's nothing. I'm just worried about the test coming up, I hate studying. He laughed again, and Todoroki's eyes narrowed in skepticism. But there's no test in the coming weeks, at least none that I know of. The boy's face dropped again before being saved by Uraka, who jumped between the two before giving Kiri a knowing look. Well, you can never be too careful, right? Kiri and I were just talking about making a study group, that's all. She laughed as well at the idea, and Todoroki realized that they were getting off topic. Have you two heard anything about Amari? I can't seem to reach her, and... Although his question was cut off when Kiri answered for him rather loudly, in fact. What? No, nah, man, she's fine. Great, actually. Totally not in any danger at all. Not in the slightest. At that, Uraka slapped a hand over her friend's face in a panicked gasp before fake chuckling at his joke. "Oh, Kiri, you're so funny with your jokes. You better stop that or you're gonna worry the poor boy, right?" She then slightly glared at the red-haired boy before nodding back as she removed her hand. Yeah, sorry about that. I got a little carried away with that one. Haha. Todoroki eyed his two classmates with slight anxiety. He didn't know a lot about social interactions, given he was always kept by himself as a child, but it sounded like they were lying to him. Why would you even say that kind of thing as a joke? The two thought for a moment before Uraka replied back nervously as she jabbed the red-haired boy in the arm. "Yeah, Kiri, why would you even say that? Of course Amari is fine. She's with Endeavor." Ah, there it is. The one sentence that made his stomach and toes turn with uncertainty. Was that everyone's response? Just because she's with his father didn't mean she was safe in the slightest. In fact, it doubled her chance for danger. Then why are the two of you hiding something from me? What's going on? That got worse. My apologies. A small bit of silence entered the room, then before the two were saved by the lunch bell. In a flash of lightning, Uraka and Kiri then quickly packed up their things before the girl smiled back apologetically. "Oh, would you look at the time? Gotta go get some lunch. See ya, Todoroki." The two raced out of there before Todoroki could even open his mouth. Instead, being forced to watch them go so suddenly, he talked with them to ease his worry, but it seemed the feeling had only doubled now. This wouldn't do. He needed something that knew Amari more closely. Maybe they would know more about the case and about her safety. Shinso had just finished packing up his books when one of his classmates poked his shoulder slightly, gaining the boy's attention. "Hey, Shinso, there's someone here for you." Twisting his brow in confusion, he stood up before making his way towards the entrance to the classroom. Who on earth could this person be? No one really talked to him except Amari, and she was absent today. He rounded the corner and almost immediately his face fell, now seeing Todoroki standing in front of him. "Great, just great. Shinso, I have to speak to you." The boy stood in shock for a moment before letting his lips curve into a small smirk, already annoyed with him. "Oh wow, it's the great Todoroki has ascended from his pedestal to talk to the commoners. Oh wonderful, I'm so blessed." At that, Todoroki's face fell into a frown, remembering why he couldn't stand him. After only a moment. "This isn't about me, it's about Amari." The girl's name caused the purple-haired boy to freeze, now gaining a bit more interest. "What about her? Is she okay?" He hated how desperate Shinso sounded. Obviously displaying his feelings for her, it made Todoroki annoyed. "I'm not sure. I was hoping you knew something. She left with my father yesterday, and I haven't been able to get a hold of her since. My other classmates are acting strange as well, and won't give me a straight answer on if she is alright." Shinso listened to the boy's explanation before crossing his arms over his chest in a silent huff. "Listen, lover boy, did you ever think that you're overreacting? It's literally been a day since she left. Maybe she's just busy with that big case she's working on." In normal circumstances, Todoroki would have agreed with Shinso, but there was something about this that wasn't right, and his friends were acting suspicious wasn't helping. "You wouldn't understand my worries, but this is serious." At that, Shinso only laughed back mockingly, now placing a hand to the doorframe in annoyance. "Wrong, I understand plenty, like how you don't trust your dear old daddy to protect her. She already told me, so don't try to act all condescending." Todoroki's eyes widened at that, a light mixture of embarrassment and anger filling his cheeks. "How do you know about that?" Narrowing his eyes, Shinso replied with slight disdain. "Because short stuff won't ever shut up about you. I have to hear about it all day long. It's not like I mind, but don't act like you know more than I do, Todoroki." Just then, the boy leaned closer, now letting his hatred for Todoroki come out full force. "Besides, aren't you babying her a little too much? I swear, you always act like Amari can't do anything for herself when we both know that's not true." Todoroki's eyes lowered with frustration as he himself took a challenging step forward. "What is that supposed to mean?" Although Shinso only smirked, knowing he was getting under the boy's skin. You want to be the brave knight that saves the princess, don't you? I think you've forgotten that Amari has done plenty before you showed up, and can do plenty without your meddling. It's like you don't have any faith in her." At that, Todoroki's face flicked with fire for a moment before gritting his teeth in anger. "How dare you assume such things about me? I know she's capable of a lot of things, but I also know that danger seems to follow her wherever she goes. She's been through so much pain and sadness you don't know anything about. I only wish for her to not get any more scars. Is that so bad?" The purple-haired boy stared at him blankly for a couple moments before stepping back in defeat, a slow sigh in his voice. "Yeah, that's one thing I can agree on with, I suppose. But you know how she is. She wants to do this herself, so you should respect that. We should respect that." Todoroki's anger diminished then, letting his eyes fall to the floor in a slight murmur. I don't want to interfere. I just want to know if she's okay. That's all." Shinso couldn't help but feel for the boy, also wanting to know if Amari was okay, although this wasn't his battle to fight, not this time at least. There was something about this case that spoke to her, the boy realized that, and it seemed almost selfish to take it away from her. After a small moment of silence, Todoroki lifted his head before turning around towards the hallway. "If you hear anything about her, please let me know." Shinso nodded his head back in response before replying softly, "Yeah." That was confirmation enough for the boy, who just lowered his eyes in agreement before leaving reluctantly. Once he was gone, Shinso then quietly took out his phone before landing on Amari's contact information and sighing. Hopefully she's doing okay. Sorry, I have to keep sipping water. Chiyosaki walked down the long corridor before opening the door to his right and stepping inside the dimly lit room. Standing in front of him was one of the men he had given a copy of Amari's fight to, and now he was watching it with interest, with one leg propped up on the sofa. Moving closer into the floor, the Izaki boss smirked at his display. "Do you like what you see? Have you thought any more about my offer to join me?" The stranger's head lowered, then a small smile on his lips as Chiyosaki continued. "If you do, I can offer the girl to you. Isn't that what you want after all? Revenge for your comrades." Flicking a button on the remote in front of him to pause the video, the man only laughed back, like he knew some kind of joke that Chiyosaki didn't. Well, that was before he spoke in a mocking tone. "How unfortunate. You don't realize it yet, do you?" The Chiyosaki narrowed his eyes at that, not enjoying the man's tone. "What?" That's when his possible partner laughed again before turning to face him. The light blue hair flashed with the lightning as Shigaraki smiled. "She's been playing you this whole time." At that, Overhaul's face dropped all at once. "What are you saying?" A small amount of silence appeared, then before Shigaraki pushed another button on the remote to rewind the tape before answering. "Do you honestly think it's a coincidence that the girl showed up alone to rescue the kid? May I remind you that this is the same girl that set up killing her own brother just to gain the League's trust. Trust me, she's not that stupid." Chiyosaki thought about the man's words for a moment before frowning back. Was he calling him stupid for thinking she was innocent? Overhaul saw the girl himself. She came alone. "Are you insinuating that Bakugo was captured on purpose?" Tapping his hands on his knee, the blue-haired villain nodded. "Precisely. You let that little doll slip right between your fingers and walked right into a trap. Although this isn't the first time, you have my condolences. She can be very convincing." Chiyosaki balled his fist in frustration before recalling her words. Did she purposely lie just to get closer to Eri? What kind of crazy girl would willingly enter a lion's den? Of course, this was all just speculation. Shigaraki could have been wrong. Narrowing his eyes, Overhaul walked over to the man before looking down at him with disdain. "Those are some bold accusations, Shigaraki, and I imagine you have proof to back up this claim. Correct?" Just as he said that, though, the man pressed play on the video, pointed to the screen as it depicted Amari fighting through the Yakuza one by one. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary there. Although that's when he paused the video, and Chiyosaki's eyes widened. Right in front of him was a shot of Amari purposely grabbing a guard's name tag and sticking it into her pocket. That lying little girl. She could get free with that. He cursed under his breath as Shigaraki then fast-forwarded it to another part before stopping on the image of Amari slightly touching her ear as if she was talking to somebody. Someone's been guiding her this entire time. If I had to take my best bets, I'd bet it's Endeavor. The Yakuza man was obviously infuriated at the discovery. He had almost let a mere child ruin everything he had worked for. This girl, she was right all along. He underestimated her too much, and it's almost toppled everything. Slamming his hand on the remote, Overhaul turned off the television before throwing the object at the wall, now shaking his head in fury. All for One's pet is really something else, I'll give her that. Just then, an obnoxious alarm rang through the space as sprinklers rained down on the two villains. Shigaraki just seemed amused, though. Now I wonder who that could be. Normally Chiyosaki would have ignored the malfunction, but now he knew better. That girl was probably making a distraction to get Eri. She planned all of this out. That sneaky little bitch. Standing up from his seat, the blue-haired villain then looked at the ceiling before replying. You better tie her up better if you wanted to keep that doll from ruining everything. Just a suggestion from previous experiences. Overhaul felt an overwhelming rage at his words, wanting to show that girl just who she was messing with. Sure, she may have the upper hand, until now, but now he was one step ahead. Todoroki sighed to himself as he exited the classroom and trudged back to the dorm slowly. The worries about Amari had not gone away. In fact, they had only multiplied since his conversation with Shinsho. And he hated it. He knew the purple-haired boy was right, and he should have left it alone. He should trust her. But with his father involved, the boy was conflicted. That's when he saw a familiar head of green hair in front of him, and before he knew it, Todoroki was already making his way to the boy. Midoriya. Although, before he reached his friend, Deku's phone began to ring in his pocket loudly, causing Todoroki to stop. It seemed he hadn't noticed him yet. Pulling out the object, Deku looked down at the phone, before answering it almost immediately. Sir Night-Eye, what is it? I apologize for my terrible rendition. The air was silent for a moment as Todoroki heard the boy reply with the slightest excitement. Mari-chan found Eri? That's wonderful! Found Eri? That phrase made Todoroki's heart feel anxious. He was happy she was completing her goal, but wasn't that kid kidnapped by a villain? Well, the last he heard, she was anyway. Something could have changed, though. Quickly grabbing his bag, Deku then quickly put the straps on his back, before hurrying off. Just before he left, Todoroki heard a phrase that made his breath stop. Yeah, the faster we can get Mari-chan out of that villain's clutches, the better. Wait, hold on. Did he just say villain's clutches? Amari was with the villains? What happened to Endeavor, or all the other heroes that were supposed to protect her? Why had they let her go into danger so willingly like that? The question slammed into his head all at once. He knew he couldn't trust his father with her safety. He was right. Clutching his bag, Todoroki then started running down the street, towards Sir Night-Eye's agency, and towards her. He needed to see this for himself. His father better have a good explanation for this, or else he didn't know what he would do. Placing her hands behind her back to make sure it looked like she was still tied up, Amari slumped against the same gray wall of her prison before sighing heavily. She had done it. She had found Eri, reassured her, and alerted the heroes of her location. Now the girl just had to wait as her part was done. She smirked to herself before calling back to Endeavor lightly. So, Endeavor, are you going to congratulate me now, or when I get back to the agency? Come on, you've got to admit it. I'm pretty impressive. His voice returned a moment later, only shaking his head in exasperation. Don't get an ego, kid. It isn't over yet. Wait until we get there to celebrate. Amari smiled under her breath and recalled the plan that was happening in a couple hours. Soon the heroes would be here for the raid, and she could go back to UA with her brother and Todoroki. She was really excited for that. Killjoy, let me have a little fun. Endeavor then looked over at Sir Night-Eye and opened his mouth to speak when suddenly the door next to them opened, now revealing Deku and the rest of the UA students. Sir Night-Eye, is it true? Are we almost ready to start the raid? Nodding his head, the man replied back plainly. Yes. Yes, it seems Ember has found the location of the child, so now we can begin our strategy for recovery. Now let us. Although, just as he was about to continue, the door slammed open again, except this time it was Todoroki, breathing heavily for a moment before glaring at his father from across the room. What have you done? Staring at his son, Endeavor glanced towards the microphone before Sir Night-Eye stepped in front of him. What are you doing here? This is a closed meeting, and you must leave at once. Todoroki didn't seem intimidated at the slightest, though, only pushing past the man to reach his father. You said you were going to protect her, and then you let her be kidnapped by villains? What is wrong with you, you scumbag? A couple heroes held him back as Endeavor rose from his seat. I don't know where you heard that from, but now is not the time for one of your temper tantrums. There are more important things happening right now. His harsh tone was not lost on the boy, who was now enraged beyond belief. Deku and his friends watched in shock as Todoroki shouted back. I don't know if I can do his voice like that. Temper tantrum. I'm not gonna do, I can't. Temper tantrums. How about you actually care about another person for once, instead of sacrificing them for your own gain? During this entire thing, Amari heard the slight commotion through her earpiece and narrowed her eyes in confusion. What's going on over there? You having a party without me, Endeavor? She laughed at her joke, and suddenly another voice echoed in her ear, causing her to freeze all at once. Amari, are you okay? What's happening? His voice echoed in her ear, and it made her heart skip a beat in confusion, yet longing. Why was Todoroki here? Wasn't he supposed to be in the dorms? Although she couldn't deny she missed his voice. Shoto, what are you? Suddenly the door to her cell slammed open and Amari immediately shut her mouth as Chisaki entered the space, a cruel smile on his face for some reason. Why did he look like that? You've been busy, haven't you, Bakugo? Todoroki's eyes widened in confusion as Endeavor shoved his son away and grabbed the microphone next to him. There was something wrong with this. Something felt off with Chisaki. Walking closer to her, Amari twisted her brow in disdain. I don't know what you mean. I've been staring at the same gray wall for hours now. I wouldn't call that busy. Although the man only laughed, lifting his hands up in amusement. Well, I don't know about that. You see, I was just given some very interesting information by an old colleague of yours. Lifting her brow, Amari turned her head in anxiety. What was he trying to say right now? And what old colleague had he talked to? She didn't know many people, but the ones she did know weren't the friendliest. She soon got her answer, though, as another man entered her cell, his light blue hair and red eyes staring into her soul as Amari's heart literally stopped in her chest. Hello again, doll. Sucking in a breath, Amari's eyes widened as she laid eyes on the very same villain she had screwed over and sent half of his team to prison. Oh, shit. She was screwed. Shigaraki. At the villain's name, everyone in the agency stiffened. The UA students all covering their mouths in horror. Why was Shigaraki here? That couldn't be good, especially for Amari. They all knew what she had done to him recently. Smiling back in a cruel manner, the villain blocked her entrance as Chisaki chuckled. What's wrong, Bakugo? You look kind of scared. Where'd all that cocky attitude go all of a sudden? She gulped back as the man continued. I told you. You have attracted the attention of some very dangerous people. You really should be careful who you double-cross. Backing herself into a corner, Amari willfully kept her hands clasped together in hopes that they wouldn't find out about her betrayal. Endeavor, on the other hand, was growing more and more anxious. There was some kind of secret that they were hiding from Bakugo, and he didn't like it. I didn't know you were with the League, Chisaki. Did they hold auditions or something? The Yakuza only shook his head at this slight amusement in his voice. I'm not. I was just offering him a position under me. But it seems like even he is useful sometimes. Like, for example, finding a rat. Chiyosaki glared at Amari when 1,000 alarm bells rang in Endeavor's head. Now putting two and two together, this was bad. This was extremely bad. He knew. Raising his voice loudly, Endeavor then yelled to the girl all at once, before slamming his hands on the table. They had been figured out somehow, and now she was in danger. Bakugo, get out of there now. In a flash, Amari lifted her hands up before creating a golden matter dome around the two villains in order to escape their clutches. Her heart beat in her chest as the girl internally swore. Shigaraki had sold her out and ruined the plans in a single moment. That bastard. Obviously, he was still pissed at her for stealing the League's plans and putting his teammates in prison. This must have been some kind of revenge to him. Running down the long corridors, Amari felt her body scream as the adrenaline threatened to swallow her whole. She had to get Eri out. She had to get Eri and get out of here now, or else risk Chiyosaki moving the girl to another location. Then everything would be ruined. Shouting loudly into her earpiece, the girl huffed, Endeavor, now would be a good time to pull up those plans for the facility. I could really use them right about now. Just as she spoke that, Shinradai raised the cabinet before slamming out an old building plan and slapping it onto the table before reading the contents. Ember had left. There should be an escape route. Nodding her head. Suddenly, she was faced by various doctors in lab coats running towards her. Just great. She'd have to fight her way out. Letting her palms spark with explosion, the girl throws her cork at the group of men and women before binding them enough to let her escape. She needed to save her energy in case it became bloody later. She continued her pathway when Sir Nadai spoke to her again. Take a left, and then you'll be at the exit doors. Quickly. Amari paused then, looking in the opposite direction of where he'd just instructed. But what about Eri? If I leave now, Chisaki is just going to move her to another location, and we'll be screwed. Endeavor shook his head before answering in a shout. Now is not the time for this. The plan is compromised, so get back to the agency. That's your priority. Staring slightly down the long hallways, she weighed her options as the man screamed back, forcing her to lose concentration. Bakugo, don't you even think about it. Just then Amari pictured Eri's small hand grabbing her leg, the light trembles in her voice. That girl was counting on her, and if she just left, then what would that make her? How many times had she herself wished to be saved in America? How many times had she called out for her brother or her family to save her? But yet no one came. She was about to do the same to Eri. No, absolutely not. Taking a breath, Amari closed her eyes for a moment before answering Endeavor, a seriousness laced in her tone. If I walk away from her now, I'll never forgive myself. She's counting on me, Endeavor. Then, before Endeavor could reply, the girl was running down the opposite corridor, towards Eri. She promised Todoroki and Katsuki that she would return, and the girl still intended to keep that promise, even if it was slightly delayed. One thing was for certain, though. She wasn't going to leave that little girl again, no matter what. Turning the corner, Amari was almost to the door when a voice stopped her in tracks. Going somewhere at all? Shakily staring at the man, Bakugo glared at Shigaraki with disdain. Get out of my way, Shigaraki. I'm taking that girl with me. Although that's when the villain did something, I assume it means unexpected. He stepped out of the way, much to her confusion. I'm not taking part in the game. Let's just say I'm a spectator today. Although I made some suggestions to the Yakuza, he really needs to keep you on a better leash. Amari growled back as the entire hallway practically exploded. The girl, now seeing Chiyosaki walk towards her during the villain's distraction. Where do you think you're going, pet? I'm not done with you yet. Gasping in surprise, the girl took off running, except with this time without a plan or strategy. First thing first, she had to get away from Overhaul. After a couple minutes, Amari leaned in a heavy pant as she turned another corner, only to find a dead end. Chiyosaki's steps echoed through the space, his voice painfully smooth. Now why would you go and try to run away from me? You know that's impossible. This is my facility, after all. Looking around frantically, she quickly realized that she was not going to get out of this one. The odds were just stacked up against her this time. She needed something else. Something to tell her location before Chiyosaki got to her. Frantically touching her body at hope of an idea, Amari suddenly felt an object in her pocket, only to examine it more closely. It was the marker that Eri had given her a couple hours ago. Then she looked to her right and found an old garbage chute next to her foot. That's when she quickly undid her brother's necklace before popping the top off of the marker. That could work. Chiyosaki stopped her then, calling back as he blocked the entrance. Good try, but it wasn't enough. Did you really think you could try and go behind my back without me noticing? You know, that doesn't make me very happy. He took a step closer, then as Amari spoke into her earpiece quietly. Is Deku there? Endeavor's voice returned just as quickly, his tone having a sense of confusion in it. Yes, but what does that? Although that's when Amari cut him off, glaring at the villain before hissing. You know, Chiyosaki, you're disgusting. Why would you use your own daughter like that? You think you can just throw her away like garbage? Like trash? You think you can erase the evidence of her existence just like that? No, I won't let you. I won't let you put the same kind of chain, the same kind of necklace around my neck. You can try all you want, but my location will always be with my brother and my family, so fuck you. Deku listened to her declaration with confusion. Her words sounded strange and odd, like they didn't fit together. Why did she want him to listen to something like that? He didn't understand. Chiyosaki was silent for a moment before slowly taking his gloves off and raising it toward her. How noble. Too bad that's the last thing you'll say to those little heroes. He took off running, and Amari tried to dodge when the man's hand touched her. Now feeling her stomach and abdomen being ripped apart. The girl let out a terrible scream in the process, which caused the heroes listening to freeze. Clutching her side, Overhaul then pulled out a small chip from her bloodied side and eyed it slowly. Tracking device. Clever. Very clever. Crushing the device between his fingers, Chiyosaki grabbed the earpiece out of the girl's ear before smiling back. I imagine I'm speaking to the number one hero. Correct. Amari clawed at the villain to get it back when he stepped on her throat, causing the girl to groan in pain. Get off of me, you bastard! Although he only pushed deeper, cutting off her airways as Chiyosaki talked through the wire again. That was a noble attempt, but now thanks to you, I have the child and All for One's creation in my grasp. But don't worry, I'll take good care of her. Gasping for breath, Amari struggled for air as she cried back brokenly. Shoto, I promise. I'll keep my promise. Then, before any heroes could respond, Overhaul crushed the earpiece into a dozen tiny bits, leaving the air quiet and mournful. Endeavor just stared at the microphone in silence as Todoroki and the others tried to process what had just happened, and how everything went wrong in a slight moment. Katsuki had just shut the door to his dorm before moving by his nearby dresser rather quickly. Because of that, a small bit of thread got caught on the handle before Bakugo had even realized it. The bracelet Amari had given him had ripped and fell to the floor. Staring at the object, the boy suddenly felt a terrible, sickening sensation through his entire body. Something felt wrong. Very wrong. But Bakugo had no idea what it was. That is the end of that chapter, and I think I will start doing this chapter by chapter instead of every 2 chapters, just because it kind of takes a lot out of me to sit and read like this. I don't know why it takes so much for me to read out loud like this, but it does, so I might just start doing it chapter by chapter. I know that's going to make it take longer to get through video-wise, and I am sorry, but just so I can keep doing it, I am going to have to slow down how I do it, or at least how I was doing it. But yeah, that's the end of that chapter. I'll read the little writer's note. This took me so long to write. Well, shit hit the fan. Overhaul has Amari and Eri, but not all hope is lost. Also, Todoroki is pissed. Oops. Next chapter, we find out why Amari has PTSD from America, and the heroes scramble to find a plan. I don't think I used to read the writer's notes. I think I'll start doing that just to... Because the writer... Just from what I remember when asking them about reading the story and talking to them, they seem like a really cool person, and so I'm going to start actually trying to put their knowing and opinions into the videos. I think that is the polite thing to do. Yep, so that was chapter 13 of season 4. Next time I read will be chapter 14 of season 4, whenever I get the time and energy to do it, right? Because I am working, I'm ultimately working to owning my own bakery. Currently, I am just working in a, small little market. It's cute. And, I've also, I finally have, friends and stuff. I am trying to have a social life, which is really nice. I got some amazing friends and an amazing partner, so... Yeah, I'm kind of happy with where I'm getting myself. So, this will be a fun hobby for when I have the time for it. Which will take me longer to get through the chapters, and I'm sorry. And it won't be as... I don't know, because you can listen to these in 30 minutes, and you're like, oh, but I want more, and I'm sorry that I won't be able to have more out for you really quickly. But, yeah, I doubt you actually know, but I don't know how to describe it, so I am sorry. But that was the end of chapter 13 of his reasons, and so next time, season 4, chapter 14, from the editor's note, shit'll hit the fan even more. They gotta find a plan, and we learned some of her trauma, which will be interesting. I forgot how I used to end these, so we're just gonna end you with a see y'all next time, and I may slightly be filling out the time for my recorder, because it usually cuts off the last few seconds. So, at least from what I remember, it would cut me off at the very last end of the last 2 minutes or whatever the hell, last couple seconds, depending on how long the filming was, so I am going to fill out the space a little bit.